All right, what's up, everybody? Ricardo Santiago here, Joico Global Brand Education Expert. Excited to be here. For me, it's the afternoon. I don't know what it is for all of you right now. I know we're kind of spread all over the place, mostly on the West Coast. So good morning to all of you. Thanks for tuning in and being here with us. We've got some exciting stuff to go over today. And honestly, I'm just going to kind of get right into it because there's a lot to cover in a little bit of time. And I hope that you all find some real value in what we're going to be talking about today. Right. So first, as you're tuning in, make sure that you let us know where you're tuning in from. We've got the chat enabled. So as you see something, if you want to ask a question, please feel free to ask a question. With Joico, we always like to give back. So we do have a giveaway that we've got going today, which we're actually going to give to 3 different people. So if you are chatting, engaging, asking questions, that opens you up to the opportunity to win one of these packages, which includes not 1, but 2 salon intro kits. So we have our Youth Block intro kit, which is basically most of these colors over here, right? So we've got a large variety of colors in there. That is going to give you your 100% gray coverage. It has what we call an anti-aging elixir mixed in there. So it's like collagen infused, helps to really soften the hair up nicely. So we've got an intro kit for that, which is our Lumi10 Youth Block. And then we also have another intro kit that we're going to be giving away. This one's special. This is actually what this class is all about, which is a brand new product that launches pretty soon, right? So it's actually coming out in the next couple of weeks, and it is called Lumi10, right? So I have a display of it right here so that you can all see, right? And this is our new Lumi10. So what it is actually a 100% coverage in 10-minute color, right? So I know you may have seen others like this before out there. I promise you, you might have seen some, but you've never tried one that works like this. So I'm gonna say this is definitely a must-have in your salon, especially for those of you who are trying to speed things up and try to create these express services that are gonna make it easier for you to work in the salon, get your clients in and out faster, and really turn up that revenue stream, which we know is so important behind the chair, right? So that is going to be one of the giveaways that we're doing. Again, we've got the Lumi10 and the Youth Block intro kits that we're giving away. And also, like I said, it's going out to 3 people. So typically when we do a live, we give 1 of these intro kits away. We're gonna do 3, right? So that's just to show how much we appreciate all of you at Salon Republic. And we wanna make sure that we're giving back as much as we can here. So I'm gonna get into talking about some of the bones of this product, right? What makes it up, right? What's different about Lumi10 that you should be incorporating this behind the chair and using it yourself in the salon. I've been fortunate to have been able to have been really working with this product for a little over a year now. And I've also been fortunate to be one of our featured artists for the launch of this and really just kind of get it out there. You all are actually the first ones to receive any kind of a VIP training like this. So we haven't done this for any other group. That just shows, again, how important you are to us. And this is also just something because we want you all to be the first ones to know about this, right? So we did a small live on Behind the Chair, just kind of giving some insight to it just about a week or 2 ago. And now this is the first one that we're doing to a targeted account group, which is all of you. So Lumi10 is essentially it's basically Lumishine, right? We're talking about the Lumishine color line, and I know a lot of you have tried it. I know a lot of you are using it behind the chair, but this is the next step in Lumishine. So this isn't going to replace that. This is really just kind of adding into that portfolio of colors. We wanted to create something. This has been in the works for years. It just happened to work out that the world became a crazy place, and we needed something like this to get our clients in and out, right? They want to move through life a little bit quicker these days. They need to have that flexibility in their schedule. So this really has given us the opportunity to do that, and the timing of it I don't think could have been any better. So it works in the same sense as Lumishine. You're still getting twice the shine, you're still getting that great coverage that you're looking for. You are still getting a beautiful color result at the end of the service, but this is really meant for that quick in and out client, right? So we're talking about at least 5 to 6 different ways that you can use this color, right? So we're talking about gray coverage. You can do it to get 100% gray coverage, and that's with all the colors within Lumishine. We'll talk about which ones those are, what different colors there are in the Lumi10 launch, but all of them are going to give you 100% gray coverage in 10 minutes. We're talking about just your root retouches that are coming in, your every 3 to 5 weekers that are seeing that gray, or that they don't want to see that line of demarcation. That's for all of those. It's for your clients that are looking for a little bump, a little lift in their color, because you can get up to 2 levels of lift with this. This is for also those clients who maybe if you're doing like a multi-step service, you're going to be doing some highlights and you want to incorporate like a shadow root or a root smudge or something like that, but you want to get a little bit more coverage, right? So you can now kind of double this up, and instead of trying to do something where you're just kind of blending the root, you can actually get full coverage at the root now as well with it. So this is great for that. I'm going to talk specifically about that type of service a little bit later. It's also a great service for your male clients, right? This is one that for me was a great breakthrough, because I really didn't have anything that was working to give me that coverage the way that I wanted it to be behind the chair until this came out, right? Because I have a lot of guys who they want to cover that gray, or some of them just want to blend it. And even though I was using my my demi creams that would work really well and kind of give me the tone and everything, but sometimes it just didn't give me enough coverage, right? So this really kind of takes me all the way there if I need it. But if I needed to create that blend, I could just dial it back, and instead of depositing for the full 10 minutes, I do like 5 to 7 minutes, and it's perfect every time. So that's another way that you can use it as well. So as you can see, it's a very versatile product, and it's something like when we're talking about using this, this is just an on scalp product, right? So we're talking about just using this on the root. So I don't want to try to glamorize it any more than I am doing right now, but I want everyone to understand, like, this is definitely something that it's to be used on the root, right? This isn't going to be used for low lighting or creating any lift through the mids and ends. You really don't want to use it for that, just because it's a 10-minute process, right? So unless you are lightning fast and you can apply that and get it off just as quick, I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's really meant to just be focused right on the root. Plus, you know, if you're going to be going over anything, if it's not virgin hair, you never want to put permanent over permanent anyway, right? You want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So I have my mannequin Maddie here. She's ready to go. I've got her sectioned out into quadrants, and what I wanted to do was show you all just a couple of the different ways that I like to use it myself behind the chair, whether it's a basic root coverage, if I'm doing a shadow roots, or if I am going to be doing a multi-step service. And I also am going to show a couple of different formulations, and because I have everyone here for a pretty good amount of time, we want to be able to show you the entire process start to finish, whereas I typically don't get a chance to do that, right? Usually we've got like half the head done and you can see a result, but then you see half of the process being done. In this case, I think we'll have more than enough time to be able to show all of that, and you'll be able to see the way that the color delivers. And I've got a couple of different ones that I'll be using. So within Lumi10, we have 3 different colors that we're focusing on, right? So we have our N series, which is our natural series, and you can see here we go from a 1 to a 10. A couple of the colors we skip out because, I mean, do you really need a 9 if you can mix the 8 and the 10? Also, do you really need a 2 if you're going to mix the 1 and the 3, right? So we've got everything that you're going to need behind the chair right here in the N series, which is, for us, if you haven't used Lumishine before, really important note on that. I think it's probably the most asked question when I'm doing any kind of PK in regards to Lumishine is, what is your base with your naturals? Because we know that different companies use different kinds of bases. Some pull a little warmer, some pull a little cooler. Ours is a balanced brown, right? Which means it's got that perfect balance of your primary tones to give you a perfectly balanced brown as your base. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it pulling too cool or too warm. It sits right in the middle, right? So we've got our N series, and then we have our NWB and our NA series right here, right? So the NWB is... I didn't get that. Could you try again? Sorry, Siri's trying to chime in right now. She likes to talk in the middle of all this stuff. She knows everything. So our NWB series, that's like the those really nice, it's a warm beige. It's actually my favorite of all of the different tones that we have with Lumishine. So I love the NWB. So you can go with like more of a chocolatey tone in the 5 up to a level 8. Like I said, you get 2 levels of lift with this. So if your client sits at like a 6, you can definitely use the 8 and bump up that root. And then also we have our NA. If you have that client that hates warmth, needs the cool tones, you've got from 8, 7, and 6, right? Anything darker than that, then you're probably fine just going with the natural series, because truthfully, you're not going to really notice that coolness if the underlying pigment is already sitting on that cooler side in those darker levels anyway. So here you can see the different shades that we have. So it's 15 in total between all the different shades that we have there. And really that's just basically the most popular of all of the shades that we have within Lumishine that are used for base coverage. That's why we've got these ones here, and that's which ones we're launching with, okay? So now that I've basically talked you to death about the different tones and how many different shades and everything we have, one last thing that I do want to say is that it also comes with its own dedicated developer, which we're calling our Lumi10 Accelerator, right? So the Accelerator, if you look here, it actually says right on there, it's a 22 volume. And I know that sounds like what, right? Like, what do you need a 22 volume for? But I will say a lot of work and effort went into creating this to create that perfect balance with Lumi10. And if our R&D people were on here right now, they would go in some serious detail about how that 22 volume was like that perfect balance. They're not on here, so I'm just going to tell you that that's what it is, and you got to trust me. All right, so work with me on this. Make sure that you're only using your Lumi10 Accelerator when using Lumi10. Also, don't be using it with the other stuff, right? It's really meant just for Lumi10. If you run out of this, it's a common question that we've had internally so far when we're doing our classes with our team. If you run out of that and you want to use 20 volume or 30 or 40 or 10, just know you're not going to get that same result, and we can't promise on the delivery of a 10-minute coverage in that. It's really meant to be used hand in hand with Lumi10, okay? So keep that in mind when you're formulating. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to start mixing up a few different formulas. I'll show you which ones I've got here that we'll be working with today. So I'm using the 7NWB. We've got also 8NA and 5N, right? So 5, 6 is kind of like that money maker. I feel like that's where most of our clients sit. I remember one time being told that it's great to have a specialty, you know, if you're going to be a blonde specialist, a red specialist, but at the end of the day, 6N kind of pays the bills because that's that most used formula, and those clients are the ones that are there every 3 to 5 weeks, like I talked about before, right? And what's great too is those clients, even though it's a simple service, those are the clients that also have friends that can recommend other clients who then can build up the book with those specialty services if that's what you want to do as well. So I've got these 3 options just to give you a good visual of how it deposits, how it lifts. We're not going to get a ton of lift because this is a mannequin, and we all know that this hair's already been processed to a certain point, so it's not really going to lift, but you will be able to see the way that color sits right on there. It is this is, I would say, a true level 8, almost a level 9. So the 8NA is really going to give you a good indicator of how that deposit works, and also you'll be able to see that tonal shift in there between the 8NA and the 7NWV. So I'll have these kind of side by side, whereas I'll have the 5N probably work through the front half in conjunction with actually no, I'm gonna bump this up. We're gonna go from a 5 to probably a 6 or a 7, and that way I can pop a few highlights in here too and show you just how to do maybe like an express face framing or something like that, right? So this is a good way to kind of speed things up in the salon, that you can do a multi-step service but still have that client in and out, highlights, root coverage, cut and style, have them in and out in a couple of hours max, right? So I think it's a great way to really boost the revenue in the salon if you have the availability and the flexibility to within your schedule. I do recommend, if you are double booking with these kinds of services, make sure that you're probably having an assistant on hand, because you definitely want someone that can help to get that color off right at that 10-minute mark. If it sits longer, it can continue to deposit a little bit more. Nothing that's going to be drastic or anything, but keep that in mind when you're formulating. I know I tend to be a more methodical applicator, which is just a really nice word for saying that I'm thorough but a little slow. And if that's the case, then you could do what I do, which is sometimes I'll stagger my formulas. So I might do like a 6N in the front half and a 5N in the back half. So by the time it hits the 10 minutes in the back, then they've kind of evened out, right? And I only tend to do that with my clients who have like really thick hair that I know I'm going to need a little bit of extra time. So that just gives me a buffer to make sure that it doesn't deposit a little bit too much, right? But honestly, it's not something that you're going to have to worry about. I'm sure you're all probably a little faster with it. So if you work through it quickly, you will find no issues. Again, just make sure you're rinsing that out at the 10-minute mark. And the other great thing about that is, because it's only 10 minutes, again, just think about how many more clients you can take in a day. Think about that last minute client who messages you, oh my God, I forgot to make an appointment. I'm going out of town tomorrow. Is there any way you can squeeze me in? And maybe it's just something as simple as saying they just need their roots done to cover up that gray. That you can just have them pop in, get the gray coverage at the end of the day. It takes you 10-15 minutes to apply, process for 10 minutes. Even if they leave wet, you don't have time to do a good blow dry or a cut or anything like that. That's still, in a short period of time, 30 minutes, you're still adding on that service at the end of your day, which isn't too bad if you think about it. So I have a lot of clients who they're serial forgetters when it comes to making their appointments, and they love to try to message last minute, and they always try to get that squeeze in, and it's always some kind of a rush. They have to do some kind of a showing, or they're going out of town, whatever the case is, some special event, and we always have to have that conversation and like, look, Nancy, make your appointment in advance next time so we don't have to worry about this. Or say, okay, you know what, this time I'll make it happen for you, but just make sure that we get that appointment before you leave next time. So in that 10 minutes that they're processing, we get that appointment set for the next one. But let's go ahead, we'll start mixing up. Sorry, I went on a tangent there.
It's important.
Let's start mixing up our formulas so that everyone can see. And just remember, feel free to ask questions throughout this entire process, so that way, again, you're getting entered into the opportunity to win one of these giveaways that we're doing for you today.
And also, while you say that, it's a great time to share this. If you know somebody who can't catch the live right now, they can opt to you can use the share button and share it so somebody can watch it later, or fellow teammates in the salon studios there. So hit the share button.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna mix up. I'm gonna start with the lightest formula and work my way down, because I only have 2 whisks, so I'm using one whisk for all the color, and then I'm using another one for the lightener. So don't judge me. I don't feel like cleaning everything. All right, so it's, again, really simple formulating. It's equal parts color to developer. So I'm just gonna do 1 ounce of each here. So I've got my bowls numbered Formula 1. So I know also that I'm working from lighter to darker here. So that's going to make it easy in regards to knowing which bowl is which. Okay, so that's the first one. Bowl number 2, we're going to go with our level 7. And again, this is that NWB, so this is going to be the that warm beige that I was talking about. So it'll be a little bit more reflective than the NA. Obviously, we know that when we are doing warmer tones to cooler tones, the cool tones tend to absorb that light more than the warmer tones, which will reflect it. So they should look fairly similar in regards to the tone, or I'm sorry, not the tone, but the deposit, right, and the level that they're sitting at. But it's going to be partly because the 8NA is going to sit on there a little bit longer, and then also because the NWB will reflect a little bit more.
Do you recommend doing any prep treatments or anything before applying this color?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that once I go into actually applying the color. We'll definitely touch on that. But there are definitely some great ways that you can kind of prep the hair properly beforehand. So with that, we're talking, we're talking about our Defy Damage Pro Series 1, which we always recommend before any color. You can absolutely still use it here with this, and it works fantastic as well. So if you really want to, I mean, you think about it, in 10 minutes, right? We'll say maybe total, we're talking about a 30-minute service where you're applying Defy Damage, you are applying your color, it's processing, and you're washing it out, and then you're applying Pro Series 2 at the bowl behind the chair. So in that, 30 minutes between your application, processing, and washing out, and sealing that cuticle with Pro Series 2, you're able to give your client color, and you're able to give them a great conditioning treatment that's going to protect their hair. So again, just kind of adding on to those things that are going to help to speed things along in the salon, but also boost your revenue stream at the end of the day. So we'll do a little bit more for this one since I'm going to do the front half with this. So does anyone have any questions so far?
No questions just yet, just some hellos from folks that are watching with Joico team. Eric chimed in and said hello, and we're just getting some confirmation about making sure to only use that accelerator with this line specifically.
Awesome. Hello team. Hi everybody. Hey Eric. Love it when the team's able to kind of tune in and join in. So if y'all have questions too that maybe I don't get to or I miss or something, you can always ask, and the team that's here that is watching will be able to also help with those as well. So that's why I love Joico. They're always so helpful, right? Okay, and then the last bowl, I'm going to save this one, but this is just going to be my Lightener Formula. Again, quick way to add a little bit of dimension into the hair without having to go crazy, but you want to give your client a little bit more than just a root coverage and add a few pops, a few highlights in there. This is a great way to do it, right? Not going to use that. We'll go with like a 10 volume. Don't want to use my accelerator with my lightener. Not that you can't, just that I want to keep that in its lane, right? Plus, most of the time I only use 10 volume with my lightener anyway.
We have some new attendees that popped in, joining us all the way from Greece.
Oh, wow.
So welcome, glad you're here.
Thanks for joining. I was looking for a number. There's no number. So don't judge me. Hi, thanks for joining us all the way from Greece. Again, if you all tune in and you ask questions, that enters you into the opportunity to win one of our 3 giveaways today, which is a Lumi10 intro kit and a Youth Block intro kit. So great products to have in the salon and to add into your salon arsenal, if you would. Okay, so we've got some gloves here. Maybe, there we go. All right, now my whisk. So I'm going to start first, like I said, with that lighter formula. So this is the 8NA. And I'll apply this one like I would just a typical root coverage. And then the 7NWV, I'm going to apply that one more so like I would for a shadow root. So you can see maybe the way the colors diffuse slightly differently. And we'll save these two formulas between the lightener and the deeper formula that we're going to do in the front. We're going to save those for after, right? Because I'm going to let these process for the 10 minutes and then rinse it out and then get into the front portion of the hair. So that way it's not sitting on there for too long. I don't know if anyone else has ever done classes like this before, but if you have, especially now with like how popular HGTV and Food Network is, no, I feel like I'm doing a cooking show. Does anybody else ever feel like they're doing a cooking show when they're doing this?
Do not eat that though. Do not.
It's PETA friendly, but it doesn't mean it's edible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's start in the back here. Like I said, I've got our mannequin already all sectioned out, and we're just going. This is really simple, just with pretty basic quadrants. And all I'm gonna do is, like I said, apply one side like a traditional base coverage, and the other side I'll do where I'll stretch that root just a little bit more.
Thanks for joining us, Jennifer. She's just asking if you could please repeat the formulas again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me grab some.
So Ricardo is going to be working with 3 color formulas today and also tying in lightener using Blonde Life powder lightener.
Yes, so we've got one formula is 8NA, which is actually, if you have any clients that are on that blonder side, this is my favorite formula that we've got. I mean, it's just like really well balanced, and it doesn't grab too cool, right? So it's just really just a perfect color. And then also 7NWV, which if you have somebody who, you know, they like those caramel honey type tones, this is fantastic for that because it's warm without being too warm, right? Because it's a warm beige, but it still has that natural base. And what's great about it is it keeps that color from, you know, grabbing too far over one way or the other, right? So I love the NWB series. Okay, so we'll just start here, and y'all remember, this isn't we're not gonna overly glamorize the color, right? This is a root coverage color. Okay, so if you're getting all excited and giddy about using this in different ways to speed up your services, my best recommendation is don't. So keep it simple, keep it direct. It's meant to be used really just the one way. And I promise, if you keep it to that, you'll find that you'll be able to really kind of excel using this behind the chair. I did a diagram where I showed like a potential revenue stream of how much you could make doing just this behind the chair with the help of an assistant, right? Because I mentioned that before. So with the help of an assistant, if you do nothing but root coverage and using Lumi10 and haircuts with blow dries for each of your clients, there is a potential there of making upwards of $200,000 to $300,000 a year just doing root coverage. And that's including that, in that math that I did, that was including giving yourself a 2-week vacation. So you can take 2 weeks off. That was based on 50 weeks in the year, not 52. And you could easily make that much behind the chair, especially if you're on the West Coast. Because in the West Coast, y'all can charge a little bit more. Some of these other places, we're not able to charge quite as much. because the demographic doesn't match for it. But even still, on the lowest end, you could easily turn this into 6 figures just doing root coverages with a haircut and a blow dry on every client that you do. Or if you want to make it even easier, just bang out root coverages all day long, right? Just call yourself a gray coverage master and give everybody 5N and just tell them that, you know, that's what you do, you're the best at it. And you could easily just do that, wash it out, turn it out to the next one, do that, wash it out, turn over to the next one. Probably take like 20 clients a day, but it's just basic root coverage and you'd be killing the game.
Do you recommend applying this to wet or dry hair, or is it okay for both?
So I've applied it both ways. I've done it dry and wet. It works great either way, right? So in some cases, if I'm doing more of like a root smudge, like a post, like in a multi-step service, then I prefer to do it on wet hair, because what I'll do typically is I'll put the highlights in first, which is kind of what I'll demonstrate later. I put the highlights in first, you let them process, and then after they've processed, you shampoo them out, and you go ahead and you would treat it just like you would if you were doing a shadow root with a toner, except you're using permanent color and you're able to get gray coverage at the same time. And it processes so quickly, you know, that you're able, again, to use it in place of that toner and get the result that you want. So, but I find the water doesn't do anything to slow down that process.
Alex asks, do you believe that root shadow works better on dry or wet hair?
So I like to, it's a great question, Alex. So I personally, I like doing a shadow root on wet hair, I would say, just because I can really kind of just gives that little extra slip. You know what I mean? Like when you're trying to diffuse that color out, I find that if the hair's wet, you can just kind of give it a little flick and it softens that color out just a little bit more than if it was on dry. Sometimes I feel like when it's on dry hair, like where it sits is where it sits. You don't have that little extra buffer from the water helping it to slip through. So, but that's a great question. There's something I was literally just about to say in regards to that, and now spaced, gone, I forgot. We'll see if it comes back to me. If it comes back, I'll make that point. But I'll show you how I like to do a shadow root, and maybe it'll help for you on dry hair. It's basically, we just pivot our sections. You can see here, I'm really just kind of taking just a straight horizontal sectioning the whole way through. And I like to take my next slice before I put color down on there, just to avoid dragging color down any further than I need to. This is where it gets a little tricky when you have a big old brush and then you're working on a tiny little section.
Which a good tip would be to have multiple size brushes.
Yeah, have more than one brush on hand.
And just wanted to share this comment from Brandon. He encourages folks to just remember that any product over top of water can dilute the product or alter it in a way that it wasn't meant to be. So if you are in well water or terrible water, do the color over top clean hair always.
Yes, that's a great tip from Brandon. And if y'all have any questions, that guy right there is a
genius.
Well, I'm trying to think what's the proper phrase. It's like he's a wealth of information. Mm-hmm. So here you can see already the amount of deposit that we're getting right there. Right? You see how that color is already starting to set in there? Right? So I'm going to just touch the hairline, make sure that I get that really well. Another thing that I like to say in regards to using this color is because it processes in 10 minutes, it's going to deposit obviously a little bit quicker. So maybe have some color wipes or a color remover on hand, and as you finish every section, just go ahead and touch that up. Now, because you want to make sure that you're getting that color off before it gets a chance to stain. Right.
Brandon wants to correct you. He said he's the chemistry wizard. So, noted.
Sorry, Brandon. Sorry.
Official title granted.
He is, you know,
earned.
It's really he just wants to use the word wizard because he's such a Harry Potter fan. Okay, so if I were doing this like a shadow root, right? What I'll do is I'm going to time that. All right, so I'm going to hit 10 minutes here, and that should give us enough time to go ahead and wash this up. So if I were treating this like a shadow root, I would start in a similar fashion that I just did on the other side. And actually, just to make sure I keep this out of the hair, just going to clip that away. So here's how I would create a dry hair shadow root. Is starting the same way in a horizontal. We're just going to apply our color. Watch those ends right there, that they don't accidentally come in contact with your color at the root. So maybe I'm going to adjust. There we go. Now we're good. So the first few sections that we take, we're just going to do the typical horizontal and then just tapping it through. But as we start to work our way up a little bit higher, then what I like to do is right here, just when I get below the occipital, after a few slices, I'm going to start taking a more narrow slice here and letting it widen out towards the top. So it's creating more of a diagonal, and we're going to keep working this diagonal the whole way up. Essentially, you're using the occipital or just below the occipital as your pivot point. And then the other thing you can do is, as you are applying that color and you're working your way up, you want to keep dragging it down a little bit lower each time. So here, come on. I want to get those sections pretty clean. There we go. So a little tap here, and then dragging it down a little bit lower here. And you can really, at this point, this is where you can really start to customize it a little bit more on your own. So what sometimes I'll do is, as I'm dragging it lower, I'm also dragging it a little bit lower in the center and a little more on the shallow end towards the perimeter, right? So again, it kind of keeps in line with like that brighter around the face and deeper internally thing that we want to create there. So I will do that. Tap up and then work it back down. Again, dragging that inside a little bit more, keeping it more shallow on the outside. And then just basically just keep repeating that same thing. Now, as I'm working up, those slices do start to get a little bit thicker on this interior portion here as I work over to this side. So make sure that you're not taking too thick of a slice, that it's going to prevent you from getting good saturation. Just kind of keep an eye on that. And now I'm really going to start stretching that color a little bit further, because I've now kind of gone past any perimeter area here, right? So I'm outside of that hairline, and now that I'm all interior, I can start stretching that color a little bit further. And this works, what this does by working it this way is, this is a good sign too. You want to be able to see some of that color pushing through there. That means I'll have good saturation on the other side once I apply to both sides there. And I also like to over direct this slightly. So I'll pull this over to the side and drop it off to the side of that falls in line with the angle that I'm working on. So that way the hair's not really ever laying on top of itself. If you need to sidestep the way I am, not just visually does it work out great so that you can see what I'm doing, but it also works out great because you're essentially creating an over direction. So what this does is it lets me to, almost without necessarily trying, create that lower center point there. So here, and you'll see once we get towards that top section, we're almost going to end in like more of a vertical.
Do you have any tips or precautions if somebody has an excessive amount of regrowth versus just a 4 to 5 week?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So in those situations, you might find that actually, unless you're strictly depositing, if you're trying to do any kind of a lift, you might find that Lumi10 maybe isn't your best go-to unless you're going to stagger your developers. But because of the fact, not the developers, but your formulas, because of the fact that it's going to take you longer to do than a typical root coverage would. So in that case, I might grab my my Youth Lock or my regular Lumi10. The other thing is you might need to stagger your developers in that case too, right? So like maybe you're going from a 20 to a 30 so that you get a little extra bump through that overly grown out section. So in that case, like I said, I would probably grab a different color line besides Lumi10. I would probably just go straight to Lumi10 or Youth Lock in that situation. Which is, again, one of the great parts about using Joico is we've got you covered no matter what your situation is. So if you run into those, just know which tool is going to be your best, the best use for the particular situation that you're in, right? And that's true for Lumi10 in particular. Maybe you want to make it fast, but it's not always going to work out that this might be your best option. Maybe Lumi10 is going to be your better option. Maybe because the colors in the range right now are only an N, NA, and NWB, you're going to have to go with Lumi10 because maybe you have someone who's a copper or a red or something like that, and you don't ever want to intermix those colors together. So don't mix. That's another good point, is don't mix Lumi10 with Lumi10 and expect it to work the same way, right? They're two different types of technologies that are going to work in different ways. Still delivering a similar result, but they work differently. So keep that in mind. Okay, and then this is just that last slice here. So you can see I basically ended more of a vertical from starting at a horizontal just by pivoting the whole way through. And what that does by applying it in that manner is it's kind of like when I was younger, I used to work at a restaurant where there's this fine dining restaurant, it's really fancy, and the bartender used to do this thing and I was like, oh man, that's cool, do you buy your napkins like that? They were all kind of like fanned out really nice, right, so that they all like never laid on top of each other, kind of like this. And I was like, dude, how do you do that? And then he showed me. He's like, oh yeah, you take the stack of napkins and you twist them around like that. And honestly, when I was figuring out how to do it, create more of a depth in my shadow root, I thought of that because essentially with a shadow root, you don't want that hair to lay perfectly in line with the previous section. So what we do is by over directing, it's always laying in a slightly different spot, and that helps to diffuse that root out a little bit more. It works, I promise.
That was a long time ago when you were young.
Hey, let's not talk about that. That's actually something my wife should never say out loud. Thanks a lot.
Because I'm older.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So we've got 55 seconds left for our 8NA to finish processing. And now you can see already a very clear difference between our tones, right? So the 8NA is a very cool tone, in comparison to this warm beige that we've got going on over here with the 7NWB. Once that timer finishes, I'm gonna reset it for 9 minutes. So that it's actually gonna, I'll do 8 minutes because it was about 1:45 left on my watch when I finished this section over here. So we'll be able to rinse this side out. You can see how that deposits in the 10 minutes. This will process for a little bit longer, and then once that's done, then we'll jump in the front, pop a few highlights in, and then kind of rinse them out and hit the shadow root with the hair being a little bit damp to help to create a root smudge.
We have a question from Alex. He is asking if the client wants to balayage their hair and she has white hair, you will do a high lift and then root shadow and cover. Did I read that right?
Let me see if I can read that right. So if the client has white hair and they want balayage, then can you ask that one more time, Alex? I just want to make sure I'm getting it right. Okay, like I don't want to give you the wrong answer or something.
And while we wait for Alex just to maybe rephrase that question for us, Marlene is asking if you could do a quick recap on what you're doing.
Yeah, of course. So let me excuse the extra noise that we're gonna get from the water here. But so we're basically, what we're doing is we're demonstrating using Lumi10, which is the newest addition to the Lumishine color line. And honestly, one of the biggest launches that we've had in, I don't know, probably better part of a decade. I know when I came on with Joico, it was the year of Lumishine. It was the year that we just launched Lumishine. So it was that was a massive launch. And you know, we really feel like this is just it's the next biggest thing that we've had since then, right? So we're talking about using this color line, which works in 10 minutes. That's going to help you to save a lot of time behind the chair. That's going to help you to get your clients in and out faster. And also at the end of the day, when you're working faster, you're able to squeeze more people in, you're able to make more money, right? Something else that I think is an important note to talk about that I haven't mentioned yet is in regards to pricing for this, right? Because I feel like some of the questions that I've had so far, particularly internally when we've done some of the classes for our team, is a lot of the educators, they'll ask, oh, okay, so it's priced the same per tube as Lumishine and it works faster, so I should charge less, right? And truth is, we actually, in the year or so that I've been using this, I've kind of done some tests with the clients, and I've asked them, I said, hey, if I can give you a color that can get you in and out faster, you know, it's new, it hasn't come out yet, that's always a great selling point too. So it's brand new, the technology is new, and you're gonna love it. It's gonna give you the same result, but it gets you in and out faster. Would you pay a little bit extra for it? All of them said yes, like without hesitation. They're like, absolutely. So basically what we did is, we created just a separate code for Lumi10 coverage versus our regular root coverage. And we bumped it up, you know, at first $5, then we went up to $10. Nobody is questioning it at all. You can basically call it a convenience fee because everyone pays a little bit more for convenience. Think about a food delivery service, right? Whereas you could get up and go to the restaurant and pick up your food yourself, or you could stay home in your pajamas without having to get dressed and just have somebody come and drop it off at your door. You pay extra for it, and everyone does it every day, which is why companies like Uber Eats and DoorDash and Grubhub and all these other ones are killing it right now because everybody will pay more for convenience. So think of it that way and use that to take advantage and make even more behind the chair when you're doing this.
Also true with Amazon Prime, you pay for an annual membership.
Right? So. Everybody's got Prime. I don't care who you are.
And if you don't, we're sorry, I didn't mean that.
Hey, listen, everybody's got Prime.
Everybody should have Prime.
If you don't have Prime, you at least you're on somebody else's account, right? So you're sharing it with somebody else, but everybody's got Prime.
So is there a certain line within Joico that is recommended to work with Lumi10?
So I mean, you can stay with any of our lines as far as like at-home care, right? So we recommend, actually, in the intro pack, when you get the intro pack, you're gonna get little testers of the color pack, or K-Pack color therapy, which is, you know, our tried and true, been around forever product line. And actually you'll be able to see it right here. So right there is are the products that you're gonna get. So that, obviously, a top recommendation. But then also too, like if you're using Defy Damage with this, it's perfectly okay to use Defy Damage at home. Obviously, you know, you can use Moisture Recovery if you need to, or Color Full, or any of these different collections within Joico. If your client has finer hair and maybe they're blonde, you can use Hydra Splash, or, you know, if they needed to use their Color Balance Purple or Blonde Light Violet, everything works, right? So you're not gonna hinder the product from working in any way. It's gonna work just fine, and you're going to be able to take care of it at home as well. So I would use it the same way as I would any other color within our collection, whether it's Lumishine, Youth Lock, Vero K-Pack, any of those. I would still take care of it the same way at home.
Alex has been kind enough to rephrase his question, and he is asking if she has monthly root and wants balayage and coverage at the same appointment, you would balayage first and then root shadow and cover.
Okay, now that makes much better sense. Thank you, Alex, for taking the time to do that. Yes, I would totally do it that way. If I was using Lumi10, we know that if you're doing balayage, it tends to take a little bit longer to process. So I would go through, do my highlighting, let it process its full amount of time. Go ahead and wash the hair out. Sorry, drop the towel. Go ahead and wash the hair out, and then afterwards you can go through and maybe just do it at the bowl and do that quick root application, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then wash it out. So that's personally how I would do it. Another great thing about this though too is, let's say I'm going through and you know you've done all the work, everything processed, and you wash the color out, you get back to the chair, you're sitting at the chair, you're going through it, and you realize, ah, crap, I missed a spot, right? It happens to the best of us, whether it's in the hairline or something internally. It sucks, right? And it really sucks when you're using a color that's going to take 35 to 45 minutes to process, to where you're almost like, maybe I can blow dry this to where they don't see it, or I throw a curl in there, right? Like those thoughts are going through your head, but you're like, no, I gotta make it right. Let me go ahead and cover this up. So what I like about Lumi10 is that if that does happen to you, now it only takes 10 minutes to touch up that spot. You know, maybe you don't have to go through the whole thing of applying. If it's a small spot, you don't have to, you know, do a full shampoo and blow dry and all that stuff again. You can just kind of do a spot application, wipe it out, spray it with a little bit of the multi-perfector spray, which you get a little sample of, and kind of keep it moving, right? So you don't have to take quite as much time. It's not as daunting. So look, second timer is done. We're gonna go ahead and rinse out the other half.
And just to confirm, Ricardo is totally kidding. You would never hide an error with a curl.
No, everyone, I'm not saying that I would do that. I'm saying every single person has that thought go through their minds. And if you tell me that you don't, I don't believe you. I'm gonna call you a liar. Every single one of you that says that.
Don't do that though. That's never okay.
I won't trust you.
All right.
Okay, so here, look, you can actually already see how that's drying a little bit, how that's a cooler tone right there, right? That's definitely more of like an ash, that natural ash that's sitting there. So now let's rinse out this side.
Sorry for the bouncing around. We're a little mobile in the salon today. It's an authentic live. Brandon says, we all have had to turn the client away from the mirror and throw their hair moment. Speak for yourself, Brandon.
I never turn them. Actually, that's the first thing I do when I get back to the chair after shampooing is I turn them away from the mirror.
He wants to save the
You gotta have that
the surprise
reveal at the end of it, and they all get so angry. They're like, oh, I hate when you turn me away from the mirror. I just want to see my hair. I'm like, you're gonna see it when we're done, all right? I don't need you nitpicking what I did. You can wait till it's done and you see it all put together, and you're like, oh, that looks so good.
This class has turned into a venting session for Ricardo. But perhaps you all can relate.
I'm saying all the things that everybody feels. Y'all know. We all go through this.
Do you recommend washing in a certain temperature or waiting for a period of time before washing after receiving a service?
I mean, I always tell my clients, give a couple days between shampoos after getting your hair done at the salon. We know that historically that the hair, oh, that's all getting wet. The color, I'm sorry, I should say, is you lose typically the largest percentage of color right at that first wash, right? So the longer that you can let it set in, the better, typically. So we always tell clients, give a couple days before you go to wash your hair, and should be good to go after that.
And cooler water is
always
recommended.
Yeah, I mean, we say cooler water, but truthfully, I mean, if it's warmer, it's okay. That's not going to change anything really, but that's particularly true for our blondes and our intensity clients. We always tell them to keep that water on the cooler side.
And how about protecting the color in different situations? Not washing, but maybe if you're a beach goer, if you're going to the pool, or...
I mean, we're talking about permanent colors, right? So I don't necessarily think that, again, those things, those environmental things are going to always be an issue, right? So educating your clients as best as you can in regards to those, I think, is always great. Just, I love to tell them to use the Perfector spray. If they're going to get their hair wet or go in the pool or in the ocean water, I'll tell them to put, wet it down with that, or put some conditioner in their hair or something like that as a barrier. But also, what's great is just for like the daily out and about, using a product like Invincible, which is a new product that we just launched, is fantastic. That's got some great environmental protection as well. So make sure that you're educating your clients, telling them, this product is great for this one's great for that. I tell my clients to keep a can of Invincible like right by their front door as they're about to walk out, just so that they don't forget. Because sometimes if it goes under the sink in the bathroom, that's like the black hole, right? They'll never see that product again. They buy them. How many clients do you have that buy a bunch of products and then they just put them underneath that sink and then they never see them again? And they come back and they'll buy another one and they're like, oh man, I forgot I had a whole other can of that in my bathroom already. Which is great for us, but it's not necessarily the best for them. So I tell them, keep it somewhere that you'll see it and you can give yourself a quick spray as you're walking out the door. All right, so here you can already see kind of the difference between these two, right? We let them process for the exact amount of time that they're supposed to process, which is 10 minutes, right? And maybe what I'll do is just kind of hit the top section right here with the blow dryer, just so that you can really see that. Apologize for the sound. If anybody ever invented like a silent blow dryer, game changer, right? Doesn't exist though. Or one that turns on when you need it to. Probably because it's not plugged in. So this, I just want everyone to be able to see, just through this top section right here, what the deposit looks like. The rest of it, we'll let it air dry, but this is just a good indication of how well that color deposits. And then also you can see the difference between the tones and the levels going with the 7 NWV versus the 8 NA. And you can see how my shadow root works. Oh, those are flying. Okay.
And Marlene, to acknowledge your question, it was noticed, mentioned in the comments as well that yes, this is for a 100% gray coverage color line.
Yes, so you can use this a lot of different ways, whether it's I should say a lot of different ways on the scalp. So whether that is for gray coverage, whether it's just for a basic root coverage that maybe it doesn't involve gray, it still works great. It's just an added benefit that you're getting the gray coverage as well. You can use this for a multi-step service, which is what we're going to do here in the front right now. You can use this for lift, right? So you can get up to 2 levels of lift with this. There are a lot of different ways that you can use this, and all of them on the scalp, right? If you have a client who needs to color their brows, quick, easy way to color the brows for your male clients. Again, fantastic color to use in all these different ways. So I wanted to show everyone really quick. So here you can see that 7 in WB and also the diffused root that we create kind of high and low points by coloring it in that way. And then here you can see that 8 NA. You can see because it's lighter, it's actually like nice and sheer, right? Because it's at that same level as the mannequin. But it definitely has a cooler tone than over here, which has that like that really nice kind of a warm brown that sits in there. And this is, like I've said before, it's really one of my favorite colors to use.
And can you just pull that back and just repeat what your formula was, one side versus the other?
Yes, so this is 7 in WB, and then this side is 8 NA.
And this is a shadow root versus a
shadow
root
root
retouch.
Versus root retouch.
Beautiful.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about multi-step services and get some water. So let's say we have a client who comes in, they get a couple of things done, right? They're going to get their root coverage, they need some highlights, they need something to get done that's going to be quick, right? Which most of the time when we hear this, we're like, doesn't exist, right? You can't get highlights and root coverage, cut and blow dry and be out of the salon in less than 2.5 to 3 hours, typically, right? But in this case, we can do that now. So what you can do is, these are some of the things that I like to do with this. All right, so when this client comes in, and here's might be a little bit damp from shampooing the back end, but that's okay. We'll clip that out of the way. So these are our Joico Artistry Foils, right? They're giant. They're 7x14 foil, but they are fantastic when you need to do something quick, right? So if you need to get those highlights in, get them processed, get them moving, and still try to make something happen in conjunction with it, I love to use these. What's great about it too is, especially with the way that color is right now, the way everything works, and the fact that we're going to be coloring the roots, it's great to use big foils to take big sections and work through it quickly and not have to worry about having to get all the way up to the root, right? So we can create a lot of lift, a lot of dimension through the mids to ends, and then still get the coverage at the base, and it all comes together perfectly at the end. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mix my lightener really quick. And I'm starting with the lightener first. So this is my second formula. This is half 6 and half 7N with the accelerator of Lumi10. I'm not going to mix that yet because I don't want it to start oxidizing. I want it to sit there and just kind of wait until the highlights are done processing. And then you can do this one of two ways. You can do, if you're pretty quick and your foils are easy to move around, you can apply between the foils right before you're washing it out, which is a great way to do it. Or you can wash the lightener out, go back through and do a shadow root at that base as well. So a couple of different ways that you can do it, but both of which I think will help to speed things along in the salon versus putting your base formula on. Sometimes we know you should really be taking the time to do things in 2 steps. You should probably put that base color on first, wash it out, go back in, do the highlights, or vice versa. But in this case, if you do have to do that, really speeds up that process. How's everyone doing so far? Y'all still with me? Did anybody take a nap? I do. I have a hard time with that. That's why I ask.
Everyone's doing great and appreciates all the information.
All right, cool. All right, so I've got 20-ish minutes to go. So what I'll do is I'll apply the highlights, and afterwards I'll be putting that shadow root in there, right? So we'll see how much time we have, if we can get the whole thing in there in that much time, but at least you know exactly the steps that are going to be taken here, right? So what I like to do when I'm doing this type of application is most of the time I will work in quadrants like this, or I'll subdivide the hair if I need to focus on one area versus another. Maybe I'll take this top section out, you know, and kind of go from the recessions, right, and make that a focus. So I can, you know, go here and work this top in like a mohawk, or and work the sides independently. But I find that you get that more natural fall if you work in if you take everything, kind of work more in a diagonal, right? So that's why I like to do this. Get the highlights in first, let them process, wash it out, and then do my root coverage afterwards. So we'll take a large section like this. Well, this one's not a large section compared to the next ones that we'll get. I do a thicker weave because I'm also going to be doing some teasing here. So I like to build that up, work my way down, let it build up, and then push it from the backside there, and then pack it the rest of the way here. So we'll do that. Kind of come in here, and actually, you know what? Forgot to grab my board.
So what we're talking about today is Joico's brand new Lumi10 10-minute gray coverage color line that's coming out September 1st. But you're also getting some extra insights as to some tips and services that are done on a regular basis in the salon too. Yep. So if you have questions about what Ricardo's doing with this highlight method, don't hesitate to ask about that too. And don't forget, your questions enter you in for the giveaway, which I think there will be an announcement here shortly.
Yes, so and like I said before, we've got 3 different people that are going to win in that giveaway. So do not hesitate to participate and ask questions, because that's what gets you a chance to win.
So maybe you could also, while you're showing that application, just kind of a little bit of a recap of maybe how not to use Lumi10, or some best practices that we've talked about earlier on.
Yeah, so a couple of ways to avoid using Lumi10. One, in a foil. Don't do this with Lumi10 in there, right? So that's probably one of your more important ones to avoid. 2 is don't overcomplicate it, right? So this is a root coverage system. This is designed to be used on scalp, and really that's about it. Just keep it there, keep the focus there, Don't venture too far out. Some of you I know already. There's always some in a group that are just natural born rule breakers that are going to have to try it in a lot of different ways, and that's fine. Experiment all you want. Do it on a mannequin. Don't do it on people, right? So figure it out though. I did the same when I got my hands on it. I tried it in a lot of different ways just to see, does it work this way, does it work that way, and it really is designed to be worked just on the base. All right, so venturing too far outside of that, I think is risky business, right? And I just would always say that if you can keep it, do it the way the manufacturer always says to use it, that's going to give you your best results every time. So just going to tease this, pack that up. Push this here, that there. That's my corner. Here we go. So I mean, this is just a quick, we're only going to put like maybe 4 or 5 foils on each side just to give us a little dimension, right? So this is a quick and easy way to add that dimension in for your clients. Right? We're staying off base on this. We're not going all the way up to that root line, because we're going to go back in and shadow that anyway using Lumi10. Right, and I don't necessarily want to be putting that over a section that I just lightened. You know, maybe depending on how much I've lightened that up, you know, you don't want to have to like potentially fill or something like that too if it's much lighter than the color that you're going to put on the base. And then just making sure that we get really good saturation here. Last thing we want also is when we're working on big sections to have a bunch of holidays and holes up in there. So again, just kind of working more of a side to side, and then feather that up. And the next foil, get that ready. And this is why I was saying before, I love using these larger foils, right? Because I'm able to get so much more hair in the foil and done in a much quicker manner. And yeah, initially it's kind of covering the face a little bit, but then once we're done, I'll kind of just slightly bend this and fold it and clip it out of the way, so that way it's not in my client's face. Because we don't want to make it uncomfortable for them either, right? Like, we still want to deliver a high caliber service. So here, just again, taking another pretty large section, right? And I would say there's probably between 1/2 inch to 1 inch between my sections, which is why I'm taking these nice large weaves, because I want to make sure that I'm getting a good amount of hair in there. And also because I'm going to be teasing that out, I'm losing a lot of that hair that I'm putting in there. So you want to make sure that you have enough that when you do the teasing, you have enough left in there to actually highlight.
And this is great too. You don't always have to do so many foils, especially for this specific client who's getting a root retouch every 4 to 5 weeks. You can continue to add and layer on more lightness.
Yeah, you get a lot of impact in a short amount of time with a few amount of foils. So it keeps the workload down, but keeps the impact up, right? Yeah, that's pretty good. I might coin that phrase.
He's TMing it. Oh, Brandon's stealing it.
No, Brandon,
Just
I
kidding.
said it first.
Just kidding.
Oh, okay. I thought he really said that.
So not sure if you're going to be able to demo this or not. Maybe I'm jumping ahead. But when speaking about the artistry foils, you have a tip that you use when applying Lumi10 that helps to keep product waste down in the salon. Maybe you can share about that as well.
Oh, yeah. So when we're using the artistry foils, you'll find in the packaging when you go to open them up, that they're actually separated in between each foil, and they have these large papers in between, and this is those right there. And it's something that we just try not to let things go to waste. So what I'll do is typically we'll cut them up and use them as we need to. So maybe you have a client who does have like those really stubborn grays, particularly around the hairline, that you can take one of these that you've already cut up and just take that and slide it into place, and it'll press that hair and just keep it in the color. And you don't have to worry about that kind of popping back out and not getting covered the way that it's supposed to. So, but yes, something that we like to do. Another thing too is, if you don't use them all, they can be recycled, which is great. So again, just trying to be environmentally friendly here at the same time. Even though, yes, I know we live in Florida, so not the most environmentally conscious state. Okay, so we've got, we'll do one, yeah, we'll do 2 more foils here.
Do you have any recommendations for how to unpack that teasing?
So my biggest tip for when you're trying to unpack this is honestly doing it at the bowl and using your Defy Damage Pro Series 2, which...
It fell down.
Oh, I fell. Well, here's a mini bottle. Imagine this is huge. That's what it looks like, but it comes in a pump. So the Pro Series 2 works really well to help to detangle. I know that that's something that Larissa talks about doing that a lot as well. But another one that you can use too is our Color Therapy Multi Perfector spray. You can take this and spray it right on that packed in area. And then as you're getting to the shampoo bowl, or maybe as you're removing the foils, then you can actually, take off the excess lightener, comb through that, and you can just comb all that through and release that. Because I pack it in the way that I do here, which I'll show one more time here really fast. So by doing this in steps versus all at once, right, so I kind of keep building, and I start further out because I want to diffuse it as much as possible. But then you can see I don't just press it straight through. I then come back in and then pack it in little by little. So when I've done that, what's great about that is if I needed to come out, because I've done it in steps, I can then, in the same steps, work it back out little by little. And it works itself back through, and then you just go back to the ends and work your way back up again. So it's a lot easier to do it that way than just jam it all in at once, and then trying to unpack that doesn't work quite as well. See? So just a couple of different things that you can do. I know this is kind of like a necessity now to work with it this way, but and the TZ lights aren't really going anywhere. So it's important to have a way to unpack it to make it less stressful for you when you're working behind the chair. And also, if anyone from this has any questions, or they want to reach out or anything like that, you can always feel free to reach out to me on Instagram too. It's my handle's at Stylist Ricardo Santiago. Same thing on Facebook, or if you're on TikTok, it's Stylist Ricardo S. And we try to share as much information as possible on those different channels just to kind of help out. Plus, if you're a dog lover, then you get to see our adorable little Frenchies on there. If you're not, then don't follow me. I don't want to know.
He doesn't mean that.
I do mean it a little bit. We don't trust people who don't like dogs. So you see how I applied that lightener on? I go on pretty thick, kind of heavy-handed at first, and then just kind of soften that up as I work back up towards the root area, and then keep it very well saturated through the mids to ends.
So this is a great time for those of you who are still with us to make sure you get any last minute questions in. Again, don't forget, if you think this is going to be helpful to somebody else, you can share it. If you needed to come back to it, or share it with your salon. You can also save it. So be sure to do that. Also be sure to check out Salon Republic on Instagram, as well as Joico and Ricardo. And
Yes.
get those last minute questions in if you have any.
And I know we'll have plenty of resources. You can check out our website, joico.com. Feel free to always look on there if you have questions about anything in particular with products or anything like that. There are tons of different resources available, and we're constantly updating and adding more stuff on there. So give that a check. Make sure that you are keeping yourself up to date with everything that we do. And if you haven't already, sign up for the email list as well, because we send out weekly emails, sometimes a few times a week, and it'll keep you up to date with all the lives and the classes and all that stuff that we've got going, that we do very regularly. I mean, several times a week we have different kinds of lives going. So it's really important to stay up to date on all those things as well. So here now you can, so this is basically, I always like to kind of leave a little bit extra sitting over the top of it. I'm not taking those highlights all the way to the root. So for that reason, I don't find it necessary to put anything else kind of up in here, because it's not gonna impact that. This is basically gonna act as a veil that sits over, but the way that this hair falls naturally is actually more off to the side here. So what I've done, and just, what is this, 4 foils, is we've created a little bit of brightness around the face without having to do too much work. I would repeat this on the other side, doing the exact same thing, making sure that our placement is very similar. If for some reason, like let's say that our client model has more of a side part, you can still do the same thing. What you would want to do is just maybe you stagger or add one extra section. So if I'm coming up this way and her part line is over here, I would stay kind of in that same diagonal doing the same thing. But then on this side, instead of, I would have to add a couple extra ones. So I would hit the underneath here with like maybe 2 foils, and then when I come in here, I will have kind of shifted my diagonal a little bit more to be a little bit more diagonal forward versus diagonal back. And so we're working that way, and then that way we can still line them up the same way. And that'll help just to keep your symmetry on both sides. Same thing would work to the other side as well. So this would process. We keep an eye on it, see how the blonde lifts, and then I like to then go through, wipe out any excess lightener, make sure that it's well saturated, release the teasing that I've done here before I shampoo, and then I'll shampoo and then come back through and touch that root up just to get it covered. And again, we're pretending that our model is what probably 90% of our natural clients are, which is a level 6, sitting between a level 5 to 7. So that's why my formulation here is level 6, 7, and this is essentially a 6.5. So this would then go on and we'll apply it afterwards. So we don't have exactly enough time to do all of that here today, but at least we got a chance to see how we could go about doing this, creating an express multi-step service that really should only take you maybe a couple of hours max total between your highlights, your processing, your base color application, and then your cut and blow dry afterwards, right? So figure it, depending on how much you're charging for each of these individual types of services. If you're taking these service times that are usually maybe 3 to 4 hours, and you're cutting them down to 2 to 2.5 hours, think about how many more of those clients you can squeeze into the day. Think about how many more services you can add on to really bump up your tickets to where you can really start making a little bit extra at the end of the day, at the end of the week. If you're adding an extra $20, $50, $100 a day, that's an extra, good amount extra on the end of the week, that then you put that into a month and then a year. Next thing you know, you're adding on tens of thousands of dollars of extra revenue just by doing these few simple things or incorporating these new products that can help to speed things up in the salon, right? I mean, even something like this, it didn't take me much longer to do the shadow root side versus the base retouch side, but I charge an extra $20 to do the shadow root because it's a more specialized service and it helps to diffuse that natural base out anyway. So something just as simple as that. You can still do it the same way, still save a lot of time, but you can make a lot more money doing it that way. So if we don't have any other questions, I think we'll probably be drawing this here to a close. I'll give another minute or so in case anyone does have questions to feel free to go ahead and ask those now. Good luck to everyone who watched and participated in hopes that you win one of these giveaway kits that we have. And do we have any questions coming in?
No questions. You were very thorough. I think the only other point we can make is in the salon, one of our most popular uses of this product is literally apply the color and leave wet. So that is also an option too.
And I mentioned that earlier, where if you have that client that if you gotta squeeze them in at the end of the day or whatever, or just that quick in and out option, you can always do that. And 20 minutes, you add 20 minutes onto your day, or you throw a treatment on there and do defy damage as well, then you can easily add on a good chunk extra in a short period of time, 20 to 30 minutes, to really boost that revenue. So at the end of the day, y'all, that's why I keep saying this, because that's what it comes down to, is it's all about the additional revenue that you can generate behind the chair in the salon, and or just the amount of time that you can save. Maybe you just want to get home a little earlier. That's great too. Take advantage of it however you can. I really hope that this live helps out for everyone that tuned in. Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out anytime at Stylist Ricardo Santiago on Instagram. You can also reach out to us here at Joico. And we look forward to seeing all of you again in the near future, and look forward to hopefully seeing you in person again real soon. All right, so y'all have a great rest of your week. See you later.